Welcome. My name is Lynn Olivieri Parker, and I'm head of Learning and Research Services here in the library. And I am delighted to welcome you to World AI Week and the AI literacy events we're holding here in Ingram Library. So AI World Week is really kind of a corporate, worldwide exploration of the global ecosystem of AI. And currently there's a huge conference that's happening in the Netherlands, but it was a great opportunity to take this time period this year in 2024 of October 7th through 11th to schedule a series of workshops to enhance our campus's AI literacies. Yesterday, we had the basics of AI, which was taught by computer science and physics student Bryson Frederick. And today, it is my pleasure that we get to have Dr. Sunil Hazari present on using AI, effective and ethical practices. Dr. Sunil Hazari is a professor of marketing in the Richards College of Business. He teaches courses in business web design, marketing research, social media, and business essentials of artificial intelligence. Dr. Hazari's extensive list of academic publications and presentations reflects his active engagement in exploring the intersection of technology, education, business, and marketing. His current research involves investigating Gen AI use for business and education, AI literacy, ethics, bias, risks, and preparing students for responsible use of AI in the workplace. There is a QR code that is available at the end of Dr. Hazari's lecture. It's available in paper format on the table in the back. But there's also, Dr. Hazari has also included it as the final slide on the slide deck. And that QR code is an avenue for you to provide feedback about the workshop, and we really appreciate having that feedback. And also it is the same link is where you can provide your student information if your professor is offering extra credit. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Hazari.
So next month, it will be 2 years since ChatGPT changed my life, my research life and my teaching life. So I'm amazed as to the progress it has made in 2 short years. Now, just to give you a context of how powerful this is, when ChatGPT was released in November 2022, it took 5 days to get 1 million users. In comparison, it took Instagram 3.5 months, and it took Netflix 2.5 years. So it was amazing because I have a background in programming, but I hate programming. But then I found that we could use conversational type of language, which is the programming language of these chatbots. And that is why the adoption curve is so steep, because it is so easy, there's no barrier of entry, all the tools are free. So what I wanted to do was give you a little bit of background on what goes on behind the scenes when our students use it, because most of the time they find it useful. But the students, from at least my experience till I started teaching the AI course, I've realized that there is a huge difference between the students who are learning about AI literacy, and students who are just using AI. So let's take a look at some of the items that we will cover. And the first workshop that I did was in February of 2023. And I've done about 6 or 7 of these workshops. Every time I throw away 25% of the slides, because the technology is improving and enhancing so fast that the tools pretty much are obsolete by the time I do my next workshop. And that is why I was telling Lynn that in the AI course that I teach, I cannot rest and say that, yes, this is the same course I'm going to teach next semester. Because I really have to update it, learn it myself, and then develop assignments around it. So we take a look at some terminology that you will come across anytime you're talking about AI or listening to AI-related topics. Gen AI is what has changed the world in the last 2 years. I'll share with you my teaching and research experience with AI, and I came up with something called AI iceberg. And this is a metaphor on what AI is in general. Okay, so I'll explain that because in most cases, students have a hard time understanding the impact of AI for not only education but also business and personal life. And then we will talk about responsible use, but being in the business school, we love doing case studies. So I will share with you a case study that really affected me because I feel for the main character in the case study, who is a student at one of our sister institutions. Okay, so you may have heard of ChatGPT, and ChatGPT refers to something called, you understand chat, normal conversations, but then there's something called generative and pre-trained and transformer, which get to be terms that we may not have heard about. And these terms have context in machine learning, which is how computers can learn without you programming it and giving it explicit instructions. Okay? A piece of trivia, while driving in to work this morning, the Nobel Prize for Physics was announced. And it was given to a Princeton professor and a professor at the University of Toronto for their work on machine learning for AI. Okay, because it has really advanced the field so much. And then you hear about neural networks, and the way I remember it, think of the human brain. That we have neurons fire based on connections they make and are able to arrive at a decision. And again, this can get very, very technical, but we are more concerned with applications rather than the technology. And generative AI, I explained to my son as when you're using a calculator, you give it a formula and it gives you an answer. Tomorrow you come back, give it the same formula, it will give you the same answer. But generative AI is different because based on statistical probability of words being put next to each other, it generates new content every time. So you open up your chatbot, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, ask it any question. What is climate change? It'll give you that answer. Go get a cup of coffee, come back, ask the same question again, it'll rephrase it and give it to you differently. Okay? And that's where the prompt framework comes in, because in order to get information that is relevant and meaningful, you really need to learn how best to do what's called prompt engineering. There's no engineering as such, but how to phrase your prompts. And in my course, I go over that. Again, it may not be directly relevant to it, but I'll refer to it. And then natural language processing, as I was saying, that you don't need to learn Python, Java, and all that if you're a user. For developing it, yes, you do. But they are coming up with tools which are like Lego blocks. So if you wanted to develop a machine learning model for marketing applications, you can do that without having to learn coding. We are not there yet, but there's a lot of work that is going on. This is a big picture. AI is not new. It started 50 years ago. But it was the domain of data scientists and researchers who were heavily into computer science type of work. But for normal students and professors who are not interested in the development portion of it, there really wasn't much we could do because there was a learning curve to the software in order to use AI. But then there is a small component of AI which is down here. And when we talk about ChatGPT and Claude and Copilot, this is just a small block that we are referring to. Okay? Sitting next to it is your Alexa, Siri, Google. Okay? Then over here you have neural networks which are used to analyze images and video. Okay? Tesla cars, what do? They use machine learning based on information that are provided by these neural networks so it can make decisions within the computers that are in there. Okay? So again, this was just a big picture. You could spend an hour or more on each of these blocks. Now, how does it work? An AI model, and when we say model, we are referring to software. Okay? Step number one, you need to give it some data. Okay, and companies have collected huge amounts of data from the internet, which they are using to train their models. Then we have some set of rules and some instructions that we give to the model on how to work on this data. And based on this, and the processing is recursive. So you give it some data, you determine the success or failure depending on what probability you're expecting. Then you assess whether the model is doing a good job. If not, you go ahead and make adjustments, and the cycle repeats itself. Okay, let's take a practical example. Let's say you want an AI model to recognize fruits. So you give it pictures of fruits, okay, and literally thousands and hundreds and thousands of them, and have it go through analyzing those pictures based on some rules and algorithms, such as what color it is, what size it is, what shape it is. And based on that, it starts getting better and better at identifying this. Okay? Once it's done, then it is able to categorize it or classify it based on certain categories. Okay? A funny story about use of AI for medicine. The scientists were using AI to train whether a model can determine if a tumor is malignant or benign. Okay? And they found that it wasn't doing a good job. When they looked into it deeper, they saw that some images had a pointer to malignant cell. So every time it looked at a picture with a pointer, it says automatically it's malignant. Okay? So that was a case of data that was given to it, which was not accurate, so the AI model wasn't able to recognize what it was looking at. So they had to go back and retrain that model. Okay? Another example. So I'm teaching a course which is the business research course, and in course 10, let's say if they introduce an AI model, and this is being done at the University of Michigan. So course 10, at least for some of my students, it is hard to use because the same questions keep coming up. Where do I find the content? When is the next test? Okay? What is the rubric for this assignment? So I can use a natural language AI model and tell it that based on the documents, videos, and other information that is in there, you create a chatbot model. So as a student, if I come in and log in, I do not have to remember to go on your content and week. I just have to say that what assignment is due next week, when is the deadline, what are the instructor's expectations. And it has already compiled all the information, and it is now able to better answer those queries from students. Okay? As a student, I say, great, this is good. As a faculty member, I'm concerned because I am keeping students from cognitive thinking and learning how to search for information. Because if the AI model is not built into a system, they would be lost because they don't have that critical thinking skills to actually search for that information. Okay. But it is available in course development tools at other universities. So this was back in January. I found out that I was getting overwhelmed by all this information and how to prompt. I wrote a book that is available on Amazon. If you send me an email, I will send you a PDF copy of this free of charge. And just use this as a basic learning tool on how to create effective prompts. So I've titled it for educators and researchers. It goes through prompts for teaching, for research, and for professional development. Then I also have another article under review that looks at how students perceive the use of ChatGPT. And I was surprised because I was thinking that students would say, hey, great, makes our job a whole lot easier. It's a tutor, it can guide me, it can coach me, it can rewrite my paper. Any assignment that is given can be put into ChatGPT. But I was shocked that students are actually concerned about ChatGPT because It says it has the potential, there was this quote, it has the potential to make me dumb. Okay? Because again, it is just too easy to use. But the ability to analyze the information, to evaluate the information, and we talk about that when we look at bias and ethics, that is a cause of concern. And I'm teaching 3 courses now, and I can see a lot of difference between students who are AI literate in the first course over here as compared to the business research course and the web design course. But I feel, as a faculty member, I'm shortchanging them if I do not introduce AI in my other courses, because they will see AI when they work in industry. So I've started to tweak my assignments to use components of AI in my other courses, and not necessarily only in the course that is about AI. Okay, and just to give you brief information of what the AI course covers, we start with the history background, then go into the different types of models, learn prompt engineering, we talk about AI ethics and bias, and you will notice that before we get into the business domains, we actually make students aware of why bias, ethics, privacy, transparency is important. And once they have that foundation, then they start looking at how AI can be used for statistics, research, marketing strategy, using it for chatbots, predictive analysis, accounting, finance. So they get pretty much a huge overview of what they cover in the business school when they take business school courses. Now, a common fallacy is that AI jobs is only for techies. That is incorrect, because as you can see from the table, no matter what your major, you have a place in the AI workspace. Okay? The problem is we do not have structured programs that will teach you in each of these fields. And that is why if you're a student, take initiative and learn more about how AI can help you in your field. And as I was sharing with you, Glenn, I have 2 students from last semester who took the AI course who are working in AI jobs now. Because employers are totally lost. They do not know how to use AI applications, tools, strategies, implementation for their core competencies. And that's where students come in, because you've learned about this, you've done projects that you saw in the previous slide. So you are now AI literate and you have the ability to contribute to your field. Okay, this was from a year and a half ago. 25% of these tools do not exist anymore. But I've just tried to categorize where AI can be used: writing, coding, research, Twitter, productivity, content creation, image, videos. Okay, all of these are just general categories within which there are hundreds of tools. The question is, which are the better ones? So then that's where you have to kind of work with different tools to see where that application is that best fits your need. Okay. I've been teaching for almost 25 years now, and at one time or the other, I've used each of these assignments in the course. Okay. AI can handle every single one of them at a very high level. Okay, think about Bloom's taxonomy of learning. You can do classification, you can do work with words, sentences, paragraphs, videos, images, and text and consolidate that information, but it is still lacking on higher order thinking. That's where you come in and you are able to work with the AI to make it even better, because it doesn't have that emotional connection, that empathy that makes it a human-like tool. Okay, what can AI models do as far as writing is concerned? If a student is given a research paper, you can have it brainstorm ideas, write an outline, write a draft, and then an asterisk next to research quotes, because AI models can hallucinate. It makes up references. Okay, so always double check with Google Scholar or publisher databases to make sure that the information is
We
reliable.
actually are getting that quite a bit. Our interlibrary loan system, people are complaining that there's lots of people who are requesting, like, my research paper says they're citing this source. Can I get a copy of it? And then we keep getting these things don't actually
You can
exist.
generate one on the fly and send it to them.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to get at is it can handle pretty much the whole life cycle of writing a research paper. Okay? Now, here's my iceberg metaphor. In 99.9% of the cases, for AI users, they're more concerned with the technology and the chatbot, the user interface. How do I get from point A to point B? Okay, which is well and good because they make the model so easy to use, and that's why it's so popular. But what they're not telling you is there is a hidden layer which you do not see unless you are AI literate. Okay, and let's talk about some of this: ethics, bias, equity, transparency, privacy, and security. So this is just like a conceptual diagram of each of these categories and the components in the category. Ethics. When we talk about ethics, these models were trained without informed consent from the sources this information was taken from, and that's why there is a lot of legal work going on where authors are suing the founders of ChatGPT and other models because they pretty much scraped the internet. Anything that was on the internet got fed into the model. Okay? And if you ask it, give me a painting based on this author, it knows what the author does, and it'll generate a replica or a painting that is close to what the author is saying, wait a second, I didn't give you permission. So how are you using it? So there was no consent given. The AI model, unless you ask it, will not tell you how it arrives at a decision. So there is no transparency. Okay? And this is bothersome for me, let's say as a faculty member, if you're citing sources and you just give me the text without any sources. So I would say, come back and say, is this an opinion or is this a valid source? But the AI model will not tell you that. They're getting better trying to identify sources, but then the quality of sources is not primary. It can pick up a blog written by a 14-year-old and consider it as an authoritative source. Okay? Responsible use, we'll see a case study with this. That bias thing is very bothersome. Okay, that is the elephant in the room because these models were trained on information that could be considered biased. Okay, so by their own admission, Sam Altman, the CEO, said that yes, when we reviewed this, we found that it was showing positive sentiment towards European American names as compared to African American names. And it was showing a negative sentiment towards female African American names. And so what they're doing is they're going back and fine-tuning the model. Another case came in where the police was using images and it was misidentifying the images with darker tones as potential criminals.
How? I mean, why does that happen?
Because it was trained on those. It was given those images and asked to make a decision. And it was saying, let's say, if this was a criminal with a darker tone, it saw 200,000 images with these type of skin tones. And the next time it sees someone with that skin tone, doesn't matter what the background, it says based on my knowledge and my training, this is a high probability that it is a criminal.
But how about women? I mean, why would it discount work done by women? Or what in the basic programming would let it lead to that?
Because the information that they took was based on the viewpoint of, let's say, a white woman, okay, in a certain age group. So, and then it generalized it to other age groups, to other demographics also. Okay, because eventually what it does is it's thinking of statistical probability, that's what it is doing. And that is why that cycle of retraining the model becomes so important. And it is especially important for high stakes type of decisions. Let's say when you're doing surgery and it's asking you to do something that goes against conventional wisdom of the surgeon. And that's why they're running into problems with applications that are high stakes. And then you have privacy issues. I'll give you an example myself. I do a lot of discussion posts in my classes, so every week I get about 150 discussion posts. So I said, well, the AI is good at classifying it, so why don't I take those discussions and I upload it to ChatGPT or another AI model and have it summarize this for me and assign a grade. On paper, it's a great idea. But then I was listening to another TED Talk, and it said that that could be a FERPA violation because I am uploading the names of students to an AI model which is being used for further training. And if it's trained on that model, if your employer comes in and says, what do you know about the name of this person? It says that this person wrote about this and was assigned a grade of this. So all of that training data becomes what is called real output for the AI model, which is scary. So I don't do that anymore. There's ways around it, but I strip out all the names if I wanted to do classification and categorization, because again, you have to follow laws when using AI, especially for companies. Like there was a case of a Samsung engineer who uploaded proprietary diagrams, and those diagrams were available to competitors. Okay. And that's why companies are now coming up with strict AI use policies, just as in education, we are coming with acceptable use policies for our students and faculty. Okay, where do you stand? Use of AI in education. On top is one extreme which says, I wrote all the assignments without consulting AI or the internet, and the last one says, I plugged a prompt into AI, copied the response and submitted it. Okay, I've got a student on the entire spectrum. Some of them say, I don't want to use AI. Others say that, well, this is too easy to do, especially week one, because they are not aware that use of AI is much different from using your Microsoft Word and other grammar tools. So as a faculty member, you will have to decide where do you want students to stop. Okay? There is a lot written about AI use for education policies. Last semester I was on a provost task force. We did a lot of work in coming up with a policy for UWG, but then they decided that technology was moving so fast, the responsibility of use of AI is now at course level. So when you take a course, I would look at the syllabus and see what the instructor has said about use of AI. Another one that I found when I did a Google search on UWG AI policy was from the legal aspect, where ITS and the legal department have put up a generic web page on how faculty members should use AI and how students should use AI. Pretty much, they're saying a whole lot without saying anything. Okay. Now, because that is the nature of the beast, it is hard to get a handle of what is considered an acceptable use. In my 4885 AI course, unless you use AI, you will not pass the course. But then in the other courses, if you use AI too much, you might fail the course. Okay, so key takeaways, and from now on, if you would do me a favor, and when you think of AI, always think of that iceberg. Okay, AI can be a friend or a foe. And this is just common sense. Do not rely on AI output. Use discretion on when to use it, when not to use it. Ask it for more information. Ask it to cite sources. Use AI for brainstorming, which is what I do when I start on a research paper, when I look at a new idea. I have it brainstorm or give me ideas based on which I can decide which specific areas to follow. And discipline-specific writing prompts are very big because the AIs, some of the AIs are more suited and tuned for technology, others are for the humanities, others are for social sciences, and so on. So you will see a difference. Try to use different models and see which one works best for you. And then finally, the most important takeaway from this topic should be that ethics, bias, privacies are key. And pay attention to that, because without that, you're just using it as a tool without really knowing what are the advantages and limitations. Okay? So let's look at a case study of a student. We have a student, Marley Stevens. I do not know her, but she's famous on the internet. If you Google her, you will find lots of information about this case. So this is one of our institutions, University of North Georgia. She was a Human Services and Administration major, and she wrote a paper on criminal justice, and that's her on her Instagram. She's on Instagram, she's on TikTok, she's on all over because of this case. So she wrote a paper of criminal justice, as you students have done. 3 days later, she gets an email from Dr. Allison saying that when your paper was uploaded, it was checked through Turnitin AI, which I do, which faculty members do because we have a license to use AI. The program returned a positive response for AI, so it got flagged for AI. For us, the AI feature has been turned off. So it'll tell me if you've taken the sources from other places, like direct quotes and so on, without citing, but it will not tell me that it's AI generated, but there is an option which University of North Georgia has enabled. Okay? And then it says, using AI is cheating and not your work, like it's saying. And therefore, you will receive a grade of 0 for your paper. Any further violations will be sent to the student academic integrity. Okay? As a student, it would terrify me to get this because, as you will see, she's saying she did not use AI. Again, I don't know her personally, this is based on what she's saying. So then, she put this on Instagram and TikTok. It goes viral, and people are saying, oh, how can they do that, and all that, super, this, that. So then Grammarly picks it up. And she's saying, look, here's what I did. I just used Grammarly. I did not use AI. And she used Grammarly for checking spelling errors, checking typos, and grammar issues. I've done that. Okay? And then there is a feature in AI, it says rewrite this sentence. And apparently she must have used that without realizing it.
In AI or in grammar?
In Grammarly. Okay? It'll take the whole block and say, it'll sound better this way. How does it rephrase it? By using AI on the back end. Okay, and so when I run it through my Turnitin with AI, guess what it does? It says, no, this is AI generated. So she explained this. I didn't use this. I use Grammarly. And Grammarly is allowed by the university. It says on the web page, my instructor tells me that I can use Grammarly to improve my writing. They wouldn't buy it. They said that, no, you used AI. Okay? So then what she says was, she appealed to the university by saying that there was hearing and all that, and let's...
Okay. I was about to leave for work and I got an email that I had a new letter from the Office of Student Integrity. Sure, we're gonna open it together. My hands are literally like, I just have to push a button and find out, and I don't want to do it. Purchase letter, blah, blah, blah. Charges. The following sanctions have been imposed and are now in effect. So, now I'm on conduct probation for a year, and I have to take a seminar about treating academic honesty. At the end, it says the reason the hearing board gave was that by the evidence I gave, the committee deemed the results from the Turnitin report to support the allegation that I used AI on my assignment. Well, he's gonna go to work now, but here's something.
So where is this? Where is it posted?
This is on Instagram, but if you do a Google search for the student, you will see comments. I feel for that student.
You and I have used Grammarly for research papers.
Yeah, we do use Grammarly because it is sanctioned by the university. But the process, I believe, was unfair. Because I've faced the same situation. I've had students use AI, but again, it's never a zero in my course. You always get a second chance because all this is new. Okay, I pretty much have a template. I can share that with you, saying that, hey, I think this is being flagged as AI generated. Just tell me what tools did you use and how much assistant did you use from any tool other than your own writing. And in most cases, students have said, can I get a second chance? Yes, you can get a second chance. And the assignments is not perfect, but it's still good because it is original work. Okay? But again, universities are struggling with the process of identifying what is AI and what's not. Okay? And it is not going to get any easier because there are tools that will change the writing to human-like, so AI is around. So it's just a question of, are you going to build a better lock or a better key? Okay, so I'm hoping I've given you a lot to think about and raise more questions than I've given you answers, but that is the nature of the answer. Questions, comments?
I mean, it's interesting. This was one of the first semesters where it was very obvious when it was something that was generated by a student versus something that was generated by a machine. I have no way to functionally prove it, except for the fact that I can read it and I can tell that that's not a human, and that it's not, in my case, what I did is, I don't do straight papers. They're sort of directed assignments where it's like do certain tools or things like that. And the AI doesn't have the ability to go into our catalog, into our databases, and review things in the way that a human can. It just doesn't have that capability. So it was very easy for me to sort of just ram the rubric at them and say, hey, you're not answering the question. You're not, this is not a meaningful answer, or this aside, or literally the source doesn't exist. Where were you coming up with this? But it's the same thing where 20 years ago, people could pay someone to write a paper for them. Now it's free and easier, but you still have the same things, and if they don't admit to it, there's really so much you can do. And for FERPA reasons, we're not supposed to be putting it into any sort of AI detector because that is training the AI on student work, theoretically, and we don't have control over that. So it's just a whole bunch of like way more tough discussions than we had to have before.
So that's the faculty perspective. How about student perspective?
So off of what you said, do you think that AI could replace future jobs like computer science and pretty much anything that goes into building AI and stuff like that?
The best answer I've heard and answer you can give is AI will not replace any job, but you will use your job to another person who knows how to do AI. Okay, so it's an essential skill to have. Now, some of the jobs will be automated, like in marketing. I can till let's say 2 years ago, I had to hire a content area expert to generate 30 Instagram posts. Now I can do it in a few seconds, so I don't need that content creator anymore. And they can do it much better based on my company profile, the persona that I'm looking for, and the posts that are most effective. So those jobs will be eliminated. But then you have to rethink on if I was a content creator, what added value can I give?
And also, with you said that when you put a prompt into AI, it's like training it. So that means like every single time you text AI, it's like gaining knowledge from what you put in.
Yes.
Or feeding false information.
And people have done that. Yeah. Competitors, they badmouth the company, put in a whole bunch of data, and the AI gets trained on, well, this company is bad. So it's a double-edged sword.
If I were to put a prompt in on there and someone were to look at, like, go to that AI and look up something that I looked up, will be able to, like if I were to look up, like something like what's 10 times 10, so I would like, put Williams.
The prompt will be used not to give to other users, but prompt will be used to train the system. And based on that, it will generate output which other users may have access to if they use this. They're constantly being fine-tuned.
So one thing that worries me a little bit is, I mean, kind of like what we alluded to, is with more time, it seems like it just continues to learn, and becomes more encompassing. And so my question kind of goes to, how do we detect generative AI? Like what turned in, and like what is that actual like technology architecture, and is it actually capable of being able to identify what's AI generated and what isn't, like in a few years or longer than that? I feel like that will become a bigger challenge, just being able to tell.
Right. See, ChatGPT, according to the founder, they already have that tool, but they don't want to release it because it will cause more problems.
Right.
So it is possible, but then there are different models that use different outputs, just like there are different tools that are being used to detect AI. So you can get a definite yes or no, but you can get a statistical probability that it may be AI generated based on it.
Can I ask what your opinion is? One of the things that a speaker that I went to once that was talking about this, was talking about like, what may happen is the low-level stuff gets handled by AI, and then the sort of higher, like, they gave the example of journalism, for instance, and some journalism is just sort of summarizing and then releasing an article, and then other stuff is like a 20-page investigative report diving into whatever, and that AI may do some of this low-level, fill up the newspaper with several hundred articles, and then the humans. But they were pointing out that the problem with that is that how do you get to be that sort of higher-level expert in your field if you're not allowed to, like, how do you hire an entry-level person, and how does that entry-level person become that expert-level person? And so I mean, it's easy to point this out in creative fields with writing and art and stuff like that, but just what is your perspective on that sort of problem that our students will be facing as they go into their first entry-level jobs?
Yeah, and what I was referring to earlier, I can speak about the marketing, that we are repurposing our assignments and our courses to teach students how to be better marketers and how to be better content creators. So the low-hanging fruit already can be done with AI. But what is the additional value that they can bring? That's what they have to convince the employers that here's what I can do with AI. But then someone else comes in who has not used AI, their ideas would not be as impressive as someone who has done creative projects as part of course. And ultimately, it will be the employer that will have to decide. Because there are companies like CNET, they used to write, but now it's pretty much AI generated. When I go to Alexa, the reviews, it gives me a summary of those reviews. Rufus or something they call it, it's AI generated. But as long as they're disclosing that it is AI. Last week, Google has something called Google LLM podcast that you give it any paper, and it's as if two people are talking to each other in conversation. So it's getting more and more sophisticated.
Any other questions?
Yes.
So as a student when submitting a portfolio, would I need to have one side labeled like my work, no AI use, and then have another section labeled with AI usage just to showcase my knowledge of it?
Yeah, that's one way to prove it, because in my course, there are a couple of assignments where they actually have to do that. Generate with AI, give me a revised version of, a better version of why that was not appropriate, relevant, accurate, and give me yours. So it just shows me those critical thinking skills that we are all striving for. But if you can do that, that would be good, because it just shows your awareness of the limitations of
I
would actually love that, to see that from students.
Yeah.
Dr. Hazari, one thing that I'm just really on the forefront of my mind is facial recognition and the capacity that just simply hasn't been released, I think, to the public yet. There's an application where basically you can point your camera at a person and it will scan and identify that person by name. And on my iPhone with images, if I have a picture of my dog or a duck, it still says dog, duck, and it'll pick out my particular pet name if I've identified it by that pet name, but it doesn't yet identify correctly the breed, like a Rottweiler, this is a Peking duck. But I think I anticipate that there'll be massive advances on this, and that will be, that kind of facial recognition that can happen will be an issue that is pressing for our students now and as they go about their adult lives.
Yeah, and it's already here. The Meta glasses, 2 MIT students, this was last week, they've hacked those, so when you wear those glasses, and I look at you, on the screen of the glasses, it'll tell me, Dr. Barusipna, UWG, the following publications, these foreign classes. You won't be able to see that I'm reading.
Yeah.
But imagine you're at a conference, you're looking at someone, you know the background of that person. It is already here.
Yes.
But it's interesting because already those technologies are showing racial biases. Just because the development of cameras in general are biased against black people. Kodak film going back to the 60s was designed for white skin tones. And so it's even, you can see examples from like 2015 where they have cameras that will like focus on you and as you move around, and they won't focus on a black face. They will only focus on a black face because that's just the way that the technology was developed.
But there is more awareness, and those fine-tuning of those models is hopefully alleviating those kind of concerns.
I guess my question about what I was mentioning is, is it really just government guardrails that will help protect Americans' privacy in the future?
The problem with that is technology is moving much faster than regulation. And there was a hearing in Congress when they came out with like a 300-page document. It didn't really say a whole lot because everyone agrees, but then implementing those policies, regulations, that's going to be an issue.
I think the guardrails have to be with the developers, if there are guardrails. You will always have unscrupulous people who don't follow. But if a developer, like a Google, for example, says, these are the limits and we won't cross that, that's responsible. Now, somebody else may come and beat Google because they don't have guardrails. And that's probably true.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the EU and those privacy laws seem to have advanced privacy for Europeans in a way that America hasn't been able to accomplish, either with governmental regulation and those kind of voluntary corporate guardrails.
And there are certain guardrails built into the systems now, like do no harm, be positive, because when these systems was developed, they didn't want like, how do I build a farm? And you say, I don't know. Okay? But I'll give you another interesting example. Marketing research course, we were doing an assignment, and a student says that I want to market a product, it's in the grocery store, that has high sugar level, high carbs, hydrogenated fat. So I went in there and I said, I want to market this product. He said, for social good and for health reasons, this is not a good idea. I said, I didn't ask you that. I just said, how do I market this? So those were the guardrails that were built in. It says, no, you need to first make sure that you are promoting literacy about health and food in order for consumers to make the right choices. I go into a store today that is left tons of food.
But Sunil, we've always, I mean, they're and I'm the prime example of that. I buy ice cream. I buy more ice cream than I should. That's good. That's good for me. But there are no guardrails on that. I mean, this is pre-AI. I think literally, if ice cream is on sale, fill my things and bring it home and eat them all. I mean, there's no guardrail on that.
Yeah, and that's individual choice. But if I ask an AI to generate me an Instagram caption for a product with high carbs and high sugar, so well, you shouldn't be doing it.
That is human opinion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I also think it's very interesting to see how this is going to change the way that people use technology and digest information and become experts on things, because we see this in Gen Alpha where they are not as good with technological things as a millennial or a Gen Xer who had to struggle with learning Office and all of its myriad of shortcuts and going through different phases. And then nowadays you have Gen Alphas who are very good at specific applications and doing something that is very railroaded for them, but then struggle if you give them a full Windows Office seat and say go do something.
Yeah.
That's a skill they need to learn. And now with Google, you know, before you even get to the first real website on a Google search, you have the AI summary and then the generated questions.
Right.
Same thing with Amazon reviews. The first thing you see on an Amazon review is not a human written thing. It is, this is what people are saying about this product. And I just wonder, as this becomes more prevalent outside of academia, but into our regular lives with coupon recommendations for grocery apps and things like that, like how exactly is society going to continue to evolve the way that it is? We have access to more information than ever before, but we are increasingly limiting ourselves for what we have access to.
And that's the base of technology that's going to be going back to that same example about course 10, I really hope they do not put a chatbot in there that students can go and ask for assignments and rubrics and information without having to make the effort to go look for it. Because that is developing certain skills which will help you.
I mean, perhaps that's what we need to start defining, is what counts as your own work versus turning in work from something or someone else. Like, at what point does I tell it to write a 3-page paper and I edited it? At what point does that become my work and not the work of the AI?
But I think what Dr. Hazari was saying, that even in a search process for information on course 10, you could go one way, meaning just have the AI do the search for you, and the other one is you learn the skill of how to find information. So even on that, there's a difference.
Correct.
I'm kind of with you on that.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hazari. Thank you.